as you continue settling into your comfortable seated position for meditation, I want to take a moment or two, talk a little bit about relaxation and a couple of other things we've all learned and have been practicing in meditation, how there are these three phases of relaxation, concentration, and expansion. And that we use relaxation of the body in particular to help us, therefore, concentrate on feeling what's going on, feeling perhaps on one of those 8 primary aspects of divine manifestations. That with that concentration, we can then enter into that expansion. But there's another part of relaxation that I want to touch on. But before I do that, let me also talk about energy. We're going to hear next week a whole lot about energy. There's a whole chapter on it. And we have been and will continue hearing a lot about energy. Last week, Lakshmi talked about the yamas and the niyamas, where there's yamas or controls for the energies that are flowing outward. The niyamas, or those things that we want to promote for those energies that are flowing inward. In other words, there are different kinds of energies. Some are more grosser or physical, some are more subtle. But in one sense, energy is energy. And the best way to feel energy is in a relaxed state. And that's the connection between the relaxation and the feeling these flows of energy. We had a couple of great examples in these postures that Keshava just led us through. In Padhastasana, the jackknife pose, as we folded ourselves down into that forward bend, feeling the stretch in the backs of our legs, and in the full expression, feeling that stretch in our lower backs. And then afterwards, we come back up into Tadasana. And if we concentrate as we're standing there in Tadasana, we can feel that flow of energy. And what we're really trying to do when we're relaxing in Tadasana is draw that energy magnetically inward and upward. We do this in every posture, but in Padhastasana, in that jackknife pose, it's very often a little easier to feel. Another great example that Keshava led us through was in the eagle pose, Garudasana. First we were on one side, and before doing the other side, as we relaxed in Tadasana for that moment, you may have noticed the body feels different between the left and right sides. Yes, of course, we were stretching one side more so than another, but then we evened out on the other. And it's in that relaxed state of Tadasana that we notice those flows of energy, the differences that those flows of energy provide. This is what I love about the art and science of Raja Yoga. We try it out. We experiment on ourselves. We experiment on our bodies. How does this flow of energy feel? Can I direct this flow of energy? And if I can, what do I do with it? What we're told is we want to direct it inward and upward. So the best of our ability, we relax, drawing the energy into our spine and upward to the spiritual eye. And then as we do that, we can then experience these divine manifestations much more readily. Those manifestations like light, sound or vibration, power, calmness, peace, love, and so on. But it takes that state of relaxation, which is why sitting in a relaxed state for meditation is so important. We heard early on in this class how Patanjali talked about the asanas are preparing the body to sit perfectly still for 3 hours in a relaxed state, so that we can sit in a relaxed state, and just as if we were in Tadasana or Savasana or any other neutral pose, we can more readily feel those flows of energy. The same is true in meditation. We sit with our spines straight. Now the physical spine is not actually straight, but we lift the spine. And we do that in such a way that if you're sitting, for example, in a cross-legged position, if your knees are able to touch the floor in a relaxed way, your spine can more easily be lifted. Sometimes if you sit on a blanket or sit on a bench or something like that, you can lift the tailbone off the floor, and that will help the knees relax to the floor and help the spine be lifted. There's some great videos that are accessible to us about all these different kinds of seated positions. For many of us, and now this is true for me, sitting in a chair is the best way, as long as I can get my knees below my hips, which as a tall person is sometimes a challenge, which is why I often sit with a blanket. And so I can sit with my spine lifted and yet still relaxed. There's no tension in my muscles. And by doing so, I can therefore feel these ever more subtle energies. At first, the energies we notice are the more physical ones. But as we practice these, as we go through these practices more and more over time, we can feel ever more subtle flows of energy. So that when we do things like chant, like we're going to in a moment, we can feel the devotional energy. And we pray, we can feel that devotional energy. And in time, and maybe you can even do this now, when you're in meditation, if you can see light at the spiritual eye, if you can hear Om, the vibrations of Om, if you feel that divine love, that joy just permeating your whole body, that is a flow of energy. That you know you are in a relaxed state, concentrate on that flow of energy, and it will expand within you and expand you into superconsciousness. That is exactly what we are all going for. So before we go any further, let's take this state that we're in and let's have a prayer that I invite you to say responsively, out loud or silently. Divine Mother, Heavenly Father, friend, beloved God, great masters of Kriya Yoga, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar, Paramahansa Yogananda, saints of all religions, humbly we bow to you all. Divine Mother, help us to feel thy presence, see thy light, hear thy vibration. Envelop us with your love, that we may share thy joy with all whom we meet. Om, peace. Amen. This chant is very simple. It's 2 words. Reveal thyself. It's an affirmation to God to reveal thyself. It's an affirmation to sense these different flows of energy. We'll sing this, chant this very slowly. Reveal thyself. Keeping the gaze uplifted at the spiritual eye. Consciously relaxing the belly. Let's take a deep breath in and out. Let's do some measured count breathing. Inhaling. Hold. Exhale. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. And release. Relaxing the belly completely. And with the gaze still lifted to the spiritual eye in a relaxed way. First notice the flow of air in the nostrils. And as you inhale, follow that flow upwards. The very peak of that flow of breath, that flow of energy. Gazing there, that's the spiritual eye. Holding your concentration there. The breath easily flows. Air easily flows. Not controlling. The breath is whatever it needs to be. We separate ourselves from the breath and we notice, we watch. Keeping ourselves separate from that flow. With each inhale we affirm Hong, and each exhale Sa. Hong, Sa. We use this mantra, we separate ourselves from our breath with this mantra so that we don't control the breath. By not controlling, we relax a little bit deeper. You may notice the breath becoming a little bit more shallow, especially with each exhale. Concentrating on the mantra at the spiritual eye. Hong, Sa. So that even as the breath relaxes, see if you notice a little bit more of that subtle flow of energy. See if you can direct it towards the spiritual eye. Hong, Sa. Hong, Sa. And now with the right forefinger, the pointer finger, gently drawing that finger towards the palm with each Hong, with each inhale. Relaxing the finger back down with each Sa, each exhale. Hong Sa. Hong Sa. If your mind wanders, bringing it back to your center. Hong Sa. After your next exhale, take a little bit deeper inhale and exhale 3 times. Letting go of the mantra. Concentrating deeply. Feeling those flows of energy, directing them to the spiritual eye. let's take this state, this elevated state that we're in, to share these divine energies that we've been experiencing. And share it with the world, share it with each other, fill this room, but also consciously sending this energy outwards, all directions, north, south, east, west, up, down, all around, spreading throughout the entire world. Divine healing energy emanating from our 3 ohms. We rub the hands to energize them, to help propel these energies outward. Om. Peace. Amen.
Deep, full breath, in and out. Bring awareness to your feet and feel the connection to the earth beneath you. Let's do a few double breaths, tensing the whole body. Throw the breath out. Again. Tense, throw the whole breath out. One last time, we'll hold the tension. Vibrate with energy. Feel yourself a divine channel. Prana, life force. And throw the breath out. Sit for a moment. Lift the inward gaze to the spiritual eye. Inwardly call to the masters or any form of divinity that resonates for you to come and be with you, to be with all of us as we study these sacred teachings. May our hearts and minds be open to the treasures being offered. May we be able to apply them to our journey, to awaken to our own highest reality, and to share this divine gift, these treasures with all. Om. Peace. Amen. Okay, great souls. So nice to be with you. And I'm going to stand up. Let me lift up this a little bit and bring it in front of me. Okay, I think this will work. So the first thing I want you to do is check in with yourself and just notice how you feel, right? It's been a beautiful evening already. But check your energy. So how awake are you? Are you drowsy at all? I don't want to do subliminal messaging here and make you drowsy if you're not. But it's evening, it's warm in this room, so a huge part of this chapter about peace is energy and the role that energy plays in cultivating and living in peace. And what is this battle? Life is a battlefield. So one of the exercises, so just notice how you feel, just be aware of that. The other challenge is a soft voice. Right? So you could fall asleep to a nice, calm, soft voice, right? And it's okay if that happens. But I invite you to a practice that is one of the practices Swami recommends for raising energy, which is the super conscious living exercises. It's a lot of fun. It's joyful. children love it, and it's been my experience that if adults allow themselves, very often they love it too. So I'm going to practice it. It's easier for me to have the mic not on me because that causes some problems, so I'm going to try and do it holding it. We'll see how that goes. So come on, stand up. Make sure that you have some room around you. And I'll be imperfect in the way that I demonstrate it. James, maybe do you feel comfortable demonstrating it since I've got this little mic here? Maybe even up on the dais so people can see you. Thank you so much. So the first one is shoes off, marching in place, opposite arms, and we say a beautiful affirmation. I am awake and ready. 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 Now pause for just a moment. Take some breaths in and out. See if you can already feel energy moving. Yeah. Then arms to the side. I'm positive, energetic, and James will leap. Enthusiastic. I am positive, energetic, enthusiastic. Lovely. I am positive, energetic, enthusiastic. I am positive, energetic, enthusiastic. Beautiful. Now we're going to wrap the arms above and underneath. I am master of my energy. I am master of my, body. Is this one body? Thank you. See, it takes a village. I am master of my body. I am master of myself. I am master of my body. I am master of myself. And now we'll rub the whole body. Awake, rejoice, my body cells. Awake, rejoice, my body cells. Awake, rejoice, my body cells. Beautiful. Now we'll wrap the skull. Awake, there, I love it. I love this help. Be glad, my brain. Be wise and strong. Be glad, my brain. Be wise and strong. Be glad, my brain. Be wise and strong. And then massage the scalp, front and back, side to side, circular motion, covering the whole scalp. Awake, my sleeping children. Awake. Awake, my sleeping children. Awake, yeah, and there's another one which I love. Chidambar said, awake, my sleeping saint. Awake, the inner saint. Awake, my sleeping saint. Awake. Now pause for a moment, stand. Notice how you feel. Allow the breath to flow. See if you feel a little bit more energized, a little more awake and ready, a little more uplifted and ready to begin. Deep, full breath in and out. Very nice. Okay, go ahead and take a seat. Thank you so much, James. So, life is a battlefield. It's a great chapter. All of them are great. And I notice as I prepare for them, whatever talk I'm giving, what comes to mind is what other teachers have said, which I appreciate. And then today, as I was reflecting on, rereading and reflecting on the reading, I was remembering just different things. I was remembering a talk that Lakshmi gave, and I thought, was it, life is a battlefield? And then I thought, well, maybe it was magnetism, and, it's all relevant. So that's a later chapter. But one of the things that Lakshmi said that really was, one of those moments where it just was an aha moment for me. So she was talking about, which Swami talks about that here. So on page 161, he says, the very energy with which we enjoy lesser pleasures is the same that we apply to the enjoyment of undiluted, vibrant bliss. And I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but I just want to mention this one piece that what Lakshmi was talking about in whichever talk she was giving, it was Raja Yoga, she was just saying how, we have these natural pleasures, these things that we have an affinity for. And it just seems so natural to feel that they are bringing us joy. That it's that thing I love that is awakening joy within me. And more than that, that can be true, but more than that, the false notion that that's where my joy lives, right? So it might awaken joy within me, but my joy does not live outside of myself. And so in this talk she was giving, one of the things that she mentioned that she realized for herself is because she loved this activity, she had so much energy for it, right? And it hadn't occurred to her. Now, this is my recollection of what you said. So I hope I got it right. This is what I took. It hadn't occurred to her that it was that very energy that was awakening joy, right? Is that it's the energy itself. And when we can bring that level of energy to anything we do, that energy flows. So later in the chapters, we talk about energy and magnetism and the power of this, and how the more energized we are, the more connected we are to our own highest self, if the energy is directed inward and upward. So energy, we could have a lot of energy if it goes down and out towards things I enjoy, towards things I like, towards things I'm doing. The end result is depletion. I might have had a really good time. I've had this experience many times where I felt like I had a great time, but then I'm spent, right? Like, wow, I need to recover from that. Very, very different with yogic lifestyle. Yogic lifestyle, it's been wonderful for me to discover that the more energy that I put out while staying centered and uplifted in my consciousness and calling on divine grace to flow through me. And it's an ongoing practice. So one of my favorite experiences with Chidambar, a Seva project we were on, he would just appear, and say, "How's the joy? How's the joy?" We're in the middle of whatever. I just loved it. I'm like, that is such a great reminder, right? Just reminding us, what are we doing here? We're serving. What's the point of it, right? To connect with our highest self, to give of ourselves. And it's something Swamiji talks about. It's a pathway to peace. It's a pathway to joy, selfless service, right? And it's a training, is what I've found. It's a training of our consciousness. It's a training of my consciousness. I remember when I went through yoga teacher training, about astonishing things about energy. I was about 3/4 of the way through the training, and I had so much energy. Yoga every day, super healthy lifestyle, chanting, affirmations, good company. Oh my goodness, right? I just felt like, I don't know if I can take any more of this, right? I'm like, I'm getting a little nervous here. We still have a quarter to go. And so I had a meeting with one of the lead teachers. How's it going? And that my first thing I said to her with some nervousness is, I feel like I have too much energy. I'm not sure what to do with it. And she took her back. She didn't expect that. She sat for a moment. She said, "Now that's not possible," which surprised me, right? And she said, energy is life force. Energy is prana. You can't have too much of that. You can't be too alive, right? I thought, okay, well, what is this I'm experiencing then? And she said, now you could be overstimulated, right? As it turned out, I wasn't, but I had been in my life many times. Because lots of energy, lots of happiness, and kind of the other thing with navigating the yogic lifestyle, the difference between happiness and enthusiasm. Happiness tends to be a little bit closer to, it's tricky here because we have this beautiful film, Finding Happiness, and Master Yogananda said, we're all seeking happiness. So this is nothing against happiness. It's just saying that in terms of the energy, what I found is that, so I distinguish it this way, let me say it that way. So is that happiness can be more connected to excitement. I'm really happy to be doing something. And the energy's kind of jumpy, and kids do that. I love seeing how, they just, no one's taught them to filter themselves, so they just jump around if they're happy, right? And sometimes adults do, if they feel free. Joy is much bigger. It's much bigger. It's infinite energy, but very calm, very centered, dynamic. So it's the power of the ocean, it's the power of the universe, it's the power of individuals like Swami Kriyananda or a master or maybe you've touched it yourself, where you just feel like, okay, wow, this is bigger than what I know of myself to be. This is a bigger reality, and it's distinct. That's been my experience. Whenever I've touched it, it's very clear that it's something way greater than me that's coming through. And it's not really overwhelming, but my ego can be uncertain about it. And that's part of what was happening in yoga teacher training. It was like, wait a minute. The other thing that was happening is I had, previous to that training, my approach in life was don't get too excited, right? So don't have too much energy is how I equated it. If you have too much energy, I'm going to burn myself out. I'll run around to get exhausted, do too much, and be exhausted. And so I was learning in that training, stimulation and energy are not the same thing. Right? So the nervous system, we learn all these different things, and it's been a lifelong practice to understand what is the difference here. And really, it can't be too alive. I don't want to tamp down the aliveness, but I actually that was my approach. Right? It was feeling like, I'm getting pretty happy. What's going to happen, right? Maybe I'll lose a sense of self-mastery. Something else Swami talks about. So Lakshmi last week gave this beautiful talk on the yamas and niyamas, right? And one of the things that we learn how to do is with brahmacharya, is flowing with Brahma. That takes that's pranayama. To be able to have all of this energy, accessing all of this energy and channel that energy in a way that is in alignment with our highest aspirations, our highest values. To be courageous, to be kind. Kesava's beautiful sadhana tonight. If you've read the chapter, you could hear all the little pearls he was dropping in the sadhana of the teaching. That how do we awaken the energy, draw the energy here? We need energy centered and uplifted in order to experience peace. That's where it will come. So going back to the start of the chapter, Swamiji says, what really felt radical to me the first time I read it, and I was reminded of what both Shanti and I think Lakshmi said at the start of the course, this phrase, right, that Raja Yoga is a revolution, right? And I think it's either of the mind or our consciousness, but it's going to really, it's been my experience that it provides a whole new paradigm for living, and unless you've heard it before. Unless you were exposed to it before. So peace, he starts with, is not a little cottage by the sea. I'm like, it isn't, right? It's not retirement. It isn't, right? No, it's not. Now, it doesn't mean you couldn't find it. You couldn't experience it there. But he addresses immediately this false notion that peace is passive. That peace is an avoidance of conflict, no disharmony, nothing difficult, everything's easy. Oh, peace, right? Peace. Oh, I feel peaceful because everything's good. It's okay, and I want to talk a little bit about environment and peaceful environment, and that it is actually part of yogic lifestyle to cultivate that. But what Swami's really saying is that we don't want to feel, I don't want to feel that peace is dependent upon that. It's not very easy to manifest a perfect environment where nothing goes wrong and there isn't any conflict, and I haven't done it. I haven't met anyone who's done it. I've met some people who have great mastery in the material realm, and it's impressive. But what I've seen, and it's been, a teaching for me. I've seen how, the downside of that is you don't necessarily learn this. If you have figured out how to kind of set things up in the material realm where there's very little conflict and very little difficulty and everything lines up, you don't really need to be a warrior. You don't really need to be very strong, right? You don't really need it. Everything's good, right? So I'm not out trying to change that for anyone. I'm not on a crusade to like mess up someone's life. Hey, if it's good, it's good. These teachings are very powerful for me because I discovered by the time they came into my life, I wasn't able to do that, right? I wasn't able to control my outer circumstances. And I had tasted a certain level of freedom. I feel like yoga came into my life such a divine gift, such a blessing. I went for a tool and it changed my whole life, which I wasn't expecting that. I've seen it happen, right? It might happen for you. Or it could be a tool that you add, right? Because you're already set, you're already good. But it's a fantastic tool, and that's where it's universal, these teachings. Right? They just really are. They apply to any spiritual path. And the gurus are not dogmatic, or they say secular. They don't. There's the beautiful thing for me about Ananda. There's no proselytizing, no evangelizing, right? Raja Yoga, the intention is to share the teachings and just see if it resonates, see if it's helpful. So this radical notion that peace is not yogic, the peace of yoga is not cultivated or experienced by avoiding difficulty, by avoiding challenges. Now, I was remembering today, one of the teachers in Ananda, she'd just been around a lot of people who'd been through great challenges and had become so strong because of it. And she said to Swamiji, I kind of feel bad because I haven't really had a lot of conflict and difficulty. Almost like, I wonder if I should look for it, right? He said, no, do not look for it. Life will bring you what you need. If you have not suffered and you don't have a lot of conflict, it's fine. Don't worry about that. She was fine, right? But it's interesting that he goes on to talk about how we have a natural inclination that even though part of the story, and this is mass consciousness story is what I would say, the message out there, certainly I had heard, is that you get your material life set up, everything taken care of, and then you rest, right? And then you have peace. And so this is saying, no, that's actually not that's not the point. In part because this is a school, right? So this planet in particular, you might have noticed, is disharmonious. Right, so the consciousness on this planet, it's rajasic for one thing. We talked about the yugas in the beginning, right? So these cycles of time, we're Dwapara Yuga, it's promising, it's uplifting. It's a little easier for yogis than Kali Yuga. But we're in transition from Kali to Dwapara. So a lot of tension, right? Difficulty, one form of energy not quite ready for the new. And so conflict, it's a time of conflict, but the earth itself, it's a blessing from a yoga perspective to be in a situation that demands our highest, right? And that's what yoga's offering, is saying the path to peace, which is our birthright, which lives inside of us, it's always there, is to be a spiritual warrior. And to recognize that the challenges we face, the difficulty in life, don't go look for it, but if it's at your door, if it's come to you, if you use these tools of yoga, you can find within yourself a peace that's untouched by what's happening in life. You can find a strength within you that can meet whatever challenge has come your way. When Keshava was saying, I rise joyfully to meet each new opportunity. Right? The other affirmation for that is, I rise determinedly. I believe, I'll have to look and see if it's right there, but that was the first time we learned it, with great determination to choose joy. Cobra's fierce, right? So you think about that pose and what's the power of that pose, and it's the spine. Right, we're lifting the spine and energy's awakening from the base of the spine in that pose. So we have the strength and the power to choose joy, To say, I will do that. I was teaching one time in a class, a new student, we're in Cobra. I said the affirmation, and you just hear this voice say, joyfully? And we all laughed. It was so wonderful. We just all burst out laughing. I said, yes, that is the affirmation. Right? It's an aspiration. We don't always feel it, but it's guiding us to what's possible. And that's what I've discovered. I was mentioning, I've met a few people who really had a level of mastery in the material realm. Is impressive to me. I still like that idea. Just not, it was not my path. Right? So I wouldn't say the material realm's a mess for me, but I didn't have what they had, which was, wow, I just didn't have that. But what happened is that we came into each other's life, and there was a moment where one of the partners suddenly had cancer, suddenly had, terminal cancer. Suddenly her whole life was completely upended, and now she couldn't make plans as she always had. And that was one of the things that impressed me about them, is that they could plan with certainty. I just was amazed by that. I plan, right? I just plan with intention, right? And I follow through a lot. I'm incredibly reliable. I'm grateful for that. But still, they had a clockwork kind of precision to their planning. And I was, they reached out for help, and I was talking with them. And I said, well, I can share something I've learned, which is one day at a time. And to be able to say to other people, to make a plan and say, I don't know if I'll be able to. I'd like to. So let's plan it, right? I may not be able to, but let's plan it. It doesn't make you flaky. It's just taking into account your reality. And that was radical for them, right? Like, what do you mean I might do it? I said, if you don't, well, you don't know if you can do it, right? You don't know tomorrow. Maybe you'll have energy, maybe you won't have energy. If you wait till you know, your life's going to get about that big. You won't do anything, you won't make any plans, right? And I said, it's been my experience that, especially in a situation like this, people tend to be understanding. If you say, I don't know, but I'd like to, let's plan lunch. Right? Maybe you will, and you'll be so happy if you can. That's part of the navigating, with the yama of non-lying, self-honesty. So I was thinking again in preparing for tonight how all the tools and practices and philosophy of yoga, they are the weapons for the battlefield. And what Swamiji said is the battlefield is our own consciousness. Right? It's how do I keep my consciousness uplifted? How do I find that inner peace, that inner joy, as James was talking about so beautifully in meditation tonight, these 8 aspects of the divine. How do I access them and stay connected to them? All the tools of yoga, all the practices of yoga, the yamas and the niyamas in particular. They really are guidelines, as Lakshmi was saying. The yamas help us to shed things that would take me away from that inner joy, right? And the niyamas, Swami talks about watering the garden of your consciousness. It's like, practice these. These are good. Cleanliness, right? Devotion to the Supreme Lord, whatever that means to you, a higher reality. So if you don't have a sense of what that is, do you have a sense of a higher reality? And the practice of relating to that, it changes our consciousness. So James was mentioning the flu that's gone around, a little bug that's gone around, and like whoosh, like wildfire, it hit some of us. Oh my goodness gracious. And I was one of those that was like, wow, okay, first James, then me, right? And then others. Well, at a certain point, and I love how in the middle of that, I thought about life as a battlefield. It just made me smile. Now, part of it is like, will I be able to do it? I don't know. I don't need to cancel that commitment yet. But more than that, part of why I thought about it is at a certain point when James was incrementally better than I was, he was moving around a little bit, I was heading to the bed to like, oh no, I'm going to be out for a while. I just said, pretty meekly, right? Could you put Om on? Could you put Om on? So Swamiji has this recording of Om, playing Om, Om, Om. He recorded. And you can just play it. It's incredibly powerful and highly recommended for changing the vibration of anywhere that you are, vibration of your home. So in the midst of, I'm pretty sure I had a fever by that point, right? I felt like I was barely conscious, but some part of me knew I want my consciousness lifted, right? If I'm gonna go into a place of relaxation, of letting go, I want to do it in a sattvic environment. And what happened for me is I then slept for, many hours, and I don't normally sleep like that. I would wake up periodically, right? Om, Om, and it just was so soothing. And I'd think, oh, great, yeah, that's great. Sound asleep again. And, I remember, so this is practice. That's part of why I thought about life as a battlefield, because we learn the tools. I've learned them, right? I learn the philosophy. We learn it. We apply it. We listen to others. How do you apply it, right? One of my favorite study groups was on the yamas and niyamas, and different people sharing, right? How did you work with non-lying this week? Because it can seem so obvious, like, do I really need to work with non-lying? And one student said she had been at the grocery store. I think she'd just come back from the store and realized they didn't charge for almonds, right? And she saw it and it was like, gotta go back, right? And she knew she had to go back because it would not serve her soul to keep those almonds without paying for them. So either go back and pay or go back and return them. I still remember that story, right? And here she was, is just saying, it can sneak in, right? It can just jump in there. So to have a practice, to have satsang community where we come together and we talk about this and say, well, how do I practice it? How do you practice it? So I wanted to share that story because it came into my mind. I'm so grateful that thought came to me. That's practice, right? Also grace, for sure, divine grace. But the practice of grace, the practice of turning towards the divine. I remember, I don't know, this must have been a year or so ago, both of these stories came to my mind with the booster shot for COVID. So we had decided we would get vaccinated, and the booster shot, I did definitely have the classic get sick from that. And at a certain point, and this flu reminded me of it, I just remember having the thought, every part of me aches, right? And I feel awful. And then it dawned on me, I'd probably said that about 5 times already. I'd been lying there going, I feel awful, I feel terrible. And I went, wait a minute. We don't want to be lying here affirming that for the next 6 or 8 hours, right? Because I'm probably going to feel awful for another, or the body will, for another 6 or 8 hours. And so I just said to myself, okay. It's true. The body is having a hard time right now. But let's not focus on that, right? Let's just accept it, right? Truthfulness, but not be affirming that. So I started affirming, I'm okay. I do feel awful. The body does feel awful. I'm okay. And I really see a link between that and could you put Om on to help my consciousness, because when I'm so sick, it's very easy for my consciousness to drop and get into suffering. So holding the two realities, that my uplifted spirit is not dependent on physical health. Wow, that's a blessing. Because I can't control my health. I do a lot to take care of it. But it's not in my charge. Yeah, it's not in my charge. And I'm not projecting to the future to say, oh, got it. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying there was a moment where it could have got the better of me and it didn't. Life is a battlefield. And so one of my favorite things that Swami said is, I wrote it down here, I don't know if I'll find it right in here. Yeah, here it is. He says, on page 160, it is no mark of spirituality never to be tempted, never to be disappointed, never to fail. These are the marks usually of people who have chosen anthills, not mountains to climb, which makes me smile. But the mark of spiritual growth is that for every setback, there is an increased determination to succeed, and that for every obstacle, there is an increasing surge of energy, until at last, the energy generated suffices to demolish the opposition and allows one to sail forward on the upward journey. A saint, Yogananda Ji said, or used to say, is a sinner who never gave up. So I love that and draw so much comfort from it. It's okay if I stumble. Right? It's okay. It happens. The consciousness drops, but I don't have to be a prisoner to it. He talks in this chapter about the qualities of food, and then in a later chapter links that to the gunas and the qualities of the gunas. So we'll hear more about that. What are the gunas, these qualities? But the idea being that for myself, the awareness of, and he talked a lot about diet in here, diet and environment. What are the ways to take care of our consciousness, right? So on the one hand, yes, it's true that Yogananda said we carry a portable paradise. Asha tells a funny story that when she heard that, somehow she had the thought, oh, it'll probably take her about 5 years. And so she's been a devotee for 50 years, over 50 years, right? And she said, still not living 100% of the time in that inner portable paradise. And she's such an amazing teacher, such a channel of grace, right? And I love her truthfulness. But she said, I don't know where I got the notion that it would take me 5 years. And it could take you less time, right? It's just, we don't know. But Swami has this metaphor of pulling a nail out of a block of wood. That, our spiritual growth, we can't see how far the nail is in. So we pull on it, and at some point, it comes out. So maybe it's 5 years, maybe it's 1. But this idea of this inner portable paradise. Okay, what was I saying? What made me say that? Consciousness, diet, environment. Oh yeah, kind of taking care of so we have it all the time, but what helps us take care of it? So Swami starts by saying the cottage by the sea. The answer is not to be hiding, right? Hiding from life, let me go over here and no difficulty. That being said, it is a good idea to work with the reality of our human body and how it's impacted by what we eat and the company we keep. Affects our consciousness, affects our mood, affects our spirit. One thing with a saint, they say about a saint, is that they change the environment they're in. Now, Yogananda said we're all saints, right? We're just on a journey of remembering who we are. So at some point, that will be the case. Maybe it's the case for you. Maybe it's the case. Savitri, one of the teachers up at Ananda, she used to tell me, she liked to play the energy game at dinner tables when guests would come to the EL. She'd sit at the table and she'd see if she could project energy to shift a conversation and lift consciousness, because she saw Swamiji do that, right? So she said, sometimes it seems to work. Right? So she just plays with it, right? The thing is to, share the light. So Swamiji talked about that in the chapter on meditation. And again, Keshava was hinting at this. Well, more than hinting, he talked about it in the sadhana. Let's see if I can go there. Turn to that page, because there were some beautiful things going through. Diet, meditation, it's raising inner energy. And so I'm highlighting this in case you haven't had a chance to read it or see it. So Swamiji says the first battle, however, is to generate only enough, is to generate enough of an upward flow to break free of the downward gravitational pull of matter. To accomplish this end, 3 things are necessary. Avoidance of those actions and states of consciousness which pull the energy downward. And the more that we go through Raja Yoga, the more we talk about that. What are those things, right? I've been mentioning company, the company that you keep, the food that you eat, the music that you listen to, the movies that you watch, the books that you read. Each time the teachers would say this to me, it's not that I went home and none of them suggested I radically transform everything, but just begin. Right? And a sweet story, James always gives me permission to share personal stories. So I came home very enthusiastic from a training, right? All the things we can do to help our consciousness. One of them is they recommend not having a TV in your bedroom, right? And if you do have a TV in your bedroom, then consider putting a nice cloth over it, because vibrationally it will kind of help protect the emanation. So I said to James, hey, they recommended not having a TV in the bedroom. And we happened to have one in the bedroom, right? We had one downstairs, we had one in the bedroom. And James just hilariously really, just wait a minute. Like there was just this energy. It was like the bull and he is a Taurus. Like suddenly a bridge too far. Like that was hilarious and I could just feel the energy. And then I remembered what they said. I go, or we could put a cloth over it. We don't they recommend that. Would that be okay? And he said, yes, we could put a cloth over it. So I put a cloth over it. A month later, James said to me, you know, I've never taken the cloth off. We never watched the TV. If you want, we can move it out of the bedroom. I go, great, yay. But it's just sweet, like how it can happen for any one of us, right? I'm mentioning James, but boy, I've had that. Wait a minute now. What are you suggesting, right? And to just be okay with it, right? Swami's saying, it's not a sign of spiritual progress to never be challenged by the teachings. To feel like, you know, really, until we're masters, until we've remembered fully who we are, it's natural to feel a sense of, I don't know. Pranaba gave a beautiful Sunday service talking about these elements of doubt that Swami has said. And Swamiji highlights that one of there's a negative downward pulling doubt habit, which is closed, right? Forget it, right? Bridge too far, no way, right? And that's just closed off. I will not even consider it. The other is, I don't know. And that's actually honest. So, you know, something comes your way, maybe it's a dietary suggestion. And you think, well, probably would be good, but I don't know. Can I do it? Right? Can maybe ease toward it. And Swami tells the story in here of Dr. Lewis, that he met Master, he gave up meat, and then started having aches and pains in his body. And went to all these doctors and no one could figure it out. He went to Master and Master said, your body is used to meat. So have a little bit, bring a little bit back in, right? He said, your cells are craving it. So he did. And then all the pain went away. And a little bit of time later, he just gave up meat. It was fine, right? So he just needed an adjustment period for that. Yeah, so let me look at time. I'm going to pause here and just ask if there's comments or questions. So if anybody has comment or question. I'll take a sip of, do I have my water? I don't know if I do. I'm laughing because that's kind of a famous thing of mine, that my water goes on pilgrimage. Almost everywhere I go. So it's probably in my bag. James, could you check for me? It's in my bags over there. I actually don't feel the need to take a sip. I was just going to. No questions, no comments. Okay. So let me take a look here, see if there's anything. Oh, this is another line of Swamiji's that I love. No man ever slid downhill into heaven. So, and he said the spiritual path is an ascent up a mountain. It's likened to that. So the tools and practices of yoga, I've been talking about them tonight, and we continue to study them. You know, the yoga asanas, incredibly powerful. As much as I practice them and I teach them, you know, I have to say that I still find myself in a level of, I think awe is the right word, of how effective they are. For me, in terms of later practicing meditation. So when I've had a full sadhana, and I don't always at home give myself the gift of a full sadhana. After many years of practice, I'm surprised I don't give myself that gift because I can meditate without it. I can meditate without it. Then I have it and I think, oh, wow, I can really meditate. Like, I can dive so deeply, so quickly. Part of it's group too. So I noticed that at our Raja Yoga class, right? So part of it's the power of group meditation. Okay, let me see if there's anything else here. Attunement. So creating the soil within us for peace and joy to grow. Attuning to the vibrations of peace. Swami talks about, and Keshava, you know, invited us to this, to practice with a spirit of peace. Practice with a spirit of joy. If you think about it, and this has been my experience, that so these subtler, you know, the path of yoga, so this has been said, but it feels worth repeating, came from a higher age. Right, so here we are, Dwapara Yuga, age of energy. These tools and practices are energetic. So part of it is we hear them, we practice them. And James was touching upon this in meditation. It takes a practice of quieting ourselves and listening very deeply. So each time Keshava had us pause and really listen. Can I feel it? Can I sense it? Is there anything happening from what I've just done physically? And it's a practice, it's a training of tuning into something. And it's been my experience, it happens. I do feel it. That in and of itself, though, becomes a practice as a way of life, right? You come into a place. That's what it was. I was like, where was I recently? The other night, I think it was for Yogananda's Mahasamadhi, we had a celebration. After the meditation, there's a little break, and I ran over to the teaching center to use the restroom. And I went in, and the small group had been in there singing, right? I walked in, I was like, well, here's the party, right? And they weren't talking. It was just joy, right? And I went into the bathroom, and I thought, oh, that's what it is. We train ourselves to feel it. And it doesn't take training necessarily to feel it, but I find that the more I practice listening and noting it. So I began to do that as a new student of yoga, is to notice periodically throughout the day everything. How do I feel after I eat? Maybe I really enjoyed what I ate. Right? Maybe it was yummy, I enjoyed it, it's satisfying. People talk about this at Thanksgiving, where you're like, you feel great, like it was really delicious. But the American habit is to overindulge. So on one hand, it seems really pleasurable, but on the other hand, everyone falls asleep, right? Everyone's stuffed. It's not a criticism of that, it's just watch for yourself, right? Watch. So the company that you keep, notice. Notice. And it doesn't, in my experience, require that I suddenly cut people out of my life, but paying attention to how's my consciousness afterward. I was with them, I had a good time, seemingly. Maybe not seemingly, maybe I did have a good time. And one of the things I did notice is that there were friends, I noticed that I was more uplifted before I saw them. And I thought, oh, how come? We were laughing, we were talking, we had a good time, I love them. I'm like, yep, that's true. But I'm not quite as uplifted in my consciousness, I wasn't. So then I can make a decision with the company that I keep. Because if I want to keep my consciousness uplifted, some settings, they require more effort and energy. And that can be incredibly strengthening. if it's worthy is what I would say. So the reason I say that is that prayer, discernment, guides to counsel with, it's helped me over the years to talk with people about certain things. Is this something I should continue? Is it a worthy endeavor for me? Is it dharmic for me? Should I continue in doing this because it's demanding of me? Right? Some things can be that. And I've been surprised at times, including groups of people, where I was counseled, nope, really not any value in you doing that. Really, are you sure? I feel like, I should. I feel like I should. Nope, no, that's not really. I had been receiving that same message in meditation. Same message. Like, no, it's not needed. It's not needed. My company's not needed there. Maybe they want me to be there. I want to be there. But my company's not needed there. And there's other places, if I'm willing to honor that I'll be guided to go, where my company is needed. I am being asked to serve or be present, or it's just different things. So, okay. Just noticing time. You're all hanging in there amazingly well. I wrote this down, remembering a talk I had heard from Ananda McSweeney, a wonderful speaker. And I want to say that if you haven't heard of, we haven't mentioned yet, Treasures Along the Path. Now, he's not necessarily in that, because those are Swamiji's tapes. Talks of Swami Kriyananda. Incredible library, wonderful talks. So you may be kind of full to the brim with Raja Yoga and not needing them right now, but down the road, if you're looking for more resources, they're wonderful. Well, Ananda, in some series, I heard one of his talks, and the theme was beware of happiness thieves. And I was like, okay, what's that? And then he talked about, in a way, what I'm saying. Like, be attentive to your life experience and notice that my own thoughts could be a happiness thief. They were trying to be when I had the booster shot reaction. I feel horrible, I feel terrible, my toes hurt. Okay, wait a minute. Let's not go there, right? Balance it with, this is, I'm okay. Right? So in the world consciousness, what I've seen where happiness thieves can come in is an attitude or a context in which life experience is held. So difficulty, kind of generally speaking, general consciousness, oh, that's awful. Oh, that's terrible. Now, this is tricky. My goodness, we are experiencing some very difficult things in the world right now. I mean, that's the problem. Yeah, the word comes to mind, problem. That's the challenge of this world. It's going on, right? Great difficulty. So it's not about saying that difficult things aren't happening. It's really about how do we respond to those difficult things. So my point here is, in my personal life, something can happen, difficult. And what I need is not someone who's commiserating in a downward pulling way and saying to me that how awful it is, and therefore I have every permission to just stay in this awful state of unhappiness about it. That doesn't help me, right, at all. It's not going to help me find peace. I completely lose joy. Where did light go? I don't know, in that thinking. What I do need is compassion, and Swami said that lifts the energy immediately. Compassion and kindness, sincerity. I need someone, when I'm having a hard time and life is difficult, to be honest with me about it and feel empathy with me for that and offer me energy that guides me sensitively to these tools. To say, there's a phrase in Ananda, why is this happening? And it's all about the tone, right? So, why is this happening, right? And we say, why is this happening? Why is this happening? It's not that I'll necessarily get an answer, but by changing the tone, I begin to become curious about it. I inquire, and I go to the source right? For me, the masters, I go to that higher reality and I ask, what can I do about this? This is happening. It's overwhelming. It's beyond me. Sometimes it really feels like that. So what do I do? Well, I'm careful about how much I expose myself to really difficult things while staying connected to what's going on. So we know, right, this is for if you're watching this later, right, so Russia invaded the Ukraine, right, very difficult, incredibly difficult time. And James showed me this beautiful picture this morning. I heard him. Speaking of like energy lifting, I could hear the energy. I go, what is it? And he had on Twitter, I guess it was, right? So a beautiful picture of children, must be refugees, probably refugee camp or something, right? They'd brought a dog in. And all the children were just like lifted. And they were covering the dog with all these little bows, right? And the dog was like totally happy and loving it. And it just, it's bittersweet, but it is sweet. It is sweet. And the fact that someone would take the picture, the journalist, and share it, James would see it and lift his spirit and share it. It happens. Like in the midst of darkness is light. It is. And that, so much of the teaching of yoga is to be a light bearer, to call the light in, awaken the light within you, share the light with everyone. And we're transformed that way. That's the path to peace. And it takes a lot of energy, a lot of courage, every ounce of what we have, one day at a time. Right? So just one day at a time. We start fresh each day, okay. And so Yogananda, one of his practices at the end of the day, to ask the question, how did the battle go? This comes right out of the Gita, right? How did they? So this is about introspection. And to ask yourself, well, how did it go today? Right? How was the consciousness battle? Right? Did things get the best of me? It's okay. We don't evaluate it from a place of criticism. Oh, I blew it. Well, that conversation didn't go well, or, it happens. But instead, to look at it and notice. And you might be surprised. Well, that conversation went well. That situation turned out. Whatever it is, what I find is if I'm looking at it and it seems like, the battle didn't go so well, right? It kind of life got the better of me. Then my response has been one of, what more could I bring in of yoga tools and practices and support to help me? So I'm not in the battle by myself, right? I could never do it. The affirmation, the pose that Keshava gave us tonight, Virabhadrasana, Warrior One, I attune my will to the source of all power. I attune my will, my life, my energy to the source of all. Okay, battle didn't go so well. All right, attune my will, attune my life, and look at what might I be able to bring in. It helps me to evaluate the day and also be compassionate. Wow, it was a hard day. The battle didn't go so well. But it's not over. So something Swamiji has said, Asha has said, many teachers have said, right? If you're not living in the happy ending, it's not the ending, right? It's not the end. It's like, because we all have a destiny of total soul freedom. It's guaranteed. It's gonna happen, right? Like we are evolving. We are. We come to these teachings, these tools and practices to help join it collaboratively. Because it will happen, our consciousness will evolve, but very, 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 very slowly without our effort, right? If we don't participate consciously in it, it takes a lot longer. But if we participate, consciously call on grace, learn these techniques, these teachings, apply them, surround ourselves with others who see us for who we are, right? And they're that mirror looking at us, and we go, oh, okay. So even if the day didn't go so great, our friends see us and they say, you're good. Okay, body doesn't feel so good, but you're good, right? You're okay. And that is the game changer. That's the revolution that I feel this course offers us, these teachings offer us, a different context for what's happening. Yoga does not tell us to try to change, and again, I'll say this sensitively, and I'll wrap up with this. The intention is not to go about trying to change the outer reality in order to live in inner freedom. But when we are able to cultivate access to that inner reality of joy and peace and kindness, all those things, we give it. We give it. And that does transform the world. It does transform it. There's greater power in charge of everything. And in the yoga teachings, in this particular path, it said that Babaji and Jesus and Christ are actually, they've got it. They see everything that's going on, right? They are fully aware of everything that's going on. That being said, God is always seeking channels, right? Be a channel of light, be a channel of grace. So, that's what I find brings me, connects me, keeps me rooted in the divine joy. So I think that is the talk tonight. I think that's it. Okay, great souls. Why don't we close with sending out that light? Let's all be those divine channels. Visualize yourself shining in your true soul nature and just sharing the blessing of light and divine friendship, love with all. Peace.